Okay, everyone. Okay. All right, are we ready to roll? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honored guest speaker, Rabbi Jeff Wogelentner, and all new Olim and new Hadassah members. I'm Rhonda Israel, and my dog Chewy in the background is barking to welcome all of you as well. I am the program chairman of the Hadassah Levonah chapter in Modi'in, and tonight we are proud to present our annual Rosh Hashana L'chaim program in the comfort of your own home. So sit back, relax, and be our guest. We hope that this evening's tremendous turnout is a barometer of the coming year's success, where we meet you and all of your friends and relatives in our chapter here in Modi'in, whether it's in person or on Zoom for your own health and safety. So, with no further ado, grab your snacks, grab your partners, and sit back and enjoy. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge our donors for tonight's program. We are very grateful and appreciative to you for your outpouring support to our wonderful cause. Beverly Rockman Edel and family on the 13th yahrzeit of the late Ian Rockman Zetzal. Grace Arkin, Evie and David Resnick, Batsheva Israel, Shoshana Klut, Lori Abrams, Bonnie Bachenheimer, Renee and Roy Chazen in honor of their anniversary. Dolev from Hatzar Chania Wines Givatayim. Evelyn Cherney, Sandy Cohen, Rivka and Sruli Cooper, Susan and David Franks, Marissa Goldman, Judy Goldstein, Marilyn Hamada, Rita Katz, Sarah Kern, Glennis Keat, Raya and David Coors, Jean Kruger, Tova Lennon in memory of Sarah Honisberg, Linda Levine, Wendy Perlmutter, Gail and Chaim Sanders in honor of their grandchildren, Jules Schwerber, Glennis and Mike Sklar, Harriet and Harvey Spitzer, Judith Warshofsky, Sorel Weiner, and Avis and David Weitzman. Thank you all for your generous support. We truly appreciate it. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker from our chapter, to welcome y'all, Yonah Goldman. Yonah?
I'm here. Good evening. My name is Yonah Goldman, and I am Rhonda Israel's daughter. Rhonda is the chapter program chairwoman of the Levonah Modi'in Hadassah chapter, and has taught the weekly Tanakh Shir for the chapter for the past 8 years. My bubby made my mother a Hadassah lifetime member, and my mother made my sister and I lifetime Hadassah members. For us, Hadassah Women is an intergenerational commitment to caring about the health and future of individuals, families, and all who need medical care throughout the state of Israel and beyond. The Modi'in Hadassah Women's Group, known as the Levonah chapter, is a unique, dedicated group of women who are kind, loving, and friendly, as well as hardworking for the cause of supporting the 2 Hadassah hospitals, one in Ein Karem and the other on Mount Scopus. The Modi'in chapter of Hadassah Women has committed itself to an annual major fundraiser to support Hadassah Hospital and to provide medical education to the community about the newest medical technology and medical research being done at Hadassah Hospital. In addition, we run fun and entertaining programs throughout the year and have created a community within a community of innovative, hardworking, creative women who are committed to the continued success of Hadassah Hospital in Yerushalayim. In the past, we have raised money for COVID-19 monitors and equipment, a cone beam CT machine for delicate ear cochlear implant surgery used for children as young as 6 years old. We equipped a rehabilitation center for injured soldiers and victims of terror. We brought breast cancer testing and women's health education to Modi'in. And this year, we are raising money to support ALS, colon cancer, and Alzheimer's research. In addition, we also donate school and art supplies to Hadassah Hospital on Mount Scopus, where they have a school in the hospital for hospitalized children so they don't fall behind in their schooling. Living in Modi'in, a 25-minute drive from Yerushalayim, is truly a gift, as we have the best hospitals right here in our own backyard. Every year, Modi'in Hadassah sponsors Metascope, which is a day-long forum in which doctors from the hospital share with Hadassah women their newest innovations and research in diverse medical areas. When our chapter works towards helping Hadassah, we're really working towards helping every single person who will ever need any form of medical treatment. And the beauty is that we have a front row seat to view the fruits of our labor. In the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu, in the second chapter, in the third line, it says, V'halchu amim rabim, v'amru l'chu v'na'ale el har Hashem, el beit Elokei Yaakov, v'yorenu medarkav, v'nelcha be'achrotav, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. It's translated, and many nations shall go and say, come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of the God of Jacob, and they will teach us of their ways, and we will walk in their paths. For out of Zion of Israel shall go forth the Torah and the words of God from Jerusalem. Now, this is a very well-known pasuk, as it is what we say every time we take the Torah out of the Aron HaKodesh, out of the Ark. This pasuk is recited because we are taking the Torah from the place where it dwells and we're bringing it out into the community so that every Jew knows that they too have access to the Torah. If you look at the pasuk in its literal translation, you would say that it's very well known that some of the most beautiful ideas and thoughts and explanations on Torah will come out of Israel, and you can hear a godly message emanating from the city of Yerushalayim. But if you were to look at the pasuk in another light, in a different light, you could also understand that our Torah is a living Torah, and that Torah encompasses the idea of saving a life, of healing the sick, of giving people hope, and of creating peace. When Hadassah Hospital and every single one of its employees and every single one of its supporters works to keep the doors open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, then we are all truly partners in taking some of the holiest aspects of life and making them available and accessible to our communities and to the world at large. We hope that you will join us in the good work that we do. We're always looking for women to join our chapter and to be our partners in this exciting, fun, and meaningful work. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Yona. Thank you for your beautiful words. Our guest speaker, Rabbi Jeff Wohlgelantner, is a recent Olev from North America. After learning in Ner Israel Rabbinical College in Baltimore, Maryland for 6 years and getting a degree in psychology from Johns Hopkins University, Rabbi Wohlgelantner came to Eretz Yisrael to learn under the great Gaon Rabbi Moshe Shapiro Zetzal. After getting married to his lovely wife Shoshana, the rabbi and his kala were sent to Australia for a summer program with Jewish youth and ended up staying in Australia for 2 years. Once bitten by the rabbinical bug, they were invited to go to California to become rabbi and rebbitzin of a startup shul in La Jolla. Their dream was always to return to their most beloved Eretz Yisrael. So 34 years later and 7 married children later, they were zochet to come to Modi'in. The rabbi gives a daily shir in Mishlei here in Modi'in on Zoom, and you can Google him to get the details to join the shir. Much to our chagrin, but certainly happy for the rabbi and Shoshi, they are moving to Ramat Beit Shemesh, where the rabbi will head up in Mishkafayim, the Beit Medrash Mishkafayim. Rabbi Wogelentner is an enthusiastic teacher whose goal is to inspire his listeners to seek more. So with no further ado, I give you our guest speaker, Rabbi Jeff Wogelentner.
Okay. Unmuting myself is about the limit of my technology knowledge. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. A special thank you to a tremendous Hakar Satov to Randa Israel for inviting me to speak. I think really was the first time that I think it was about 6 months before the event I was already booked. So I think this was the earliest that I've ever been booked and been thinking about this for 6 months. So it's really a special evening and a great honor to be able to speak to all of you. And I'll share during my talk some things that I think are really profound and special about this event and about this organization. My wife, I told her to speak for Hadassah, and originally the event was supposed to be in someone's house and on someone's mirpeset, and I said, they changed it. So she said to me, "Where's it going to be?" So I said, "It's going to be here." So she panicked for a second and said, "Okay." No, I said on Zoom. I don't have to leave the house. It's all going to be right here. And the Zoom thing is amazing, but it's not as great as being around people, being in the presence of people. But we'll try to compensate as best as we can. We are marching towards the Yom Hadin, marching towards the Day of Judgment, the Rosh Hashana, which is not merely just the beginning of the year, and as glorious and joyous as that concept is, and that it is a glorious and joyous day, but it's the recognition that we're standing in front of God, and we're standing in front of God on that day, and really for that period of time, for the 10 days of repentance. This month is the month of Elul, which is the month of preparation, where we start to realign ourselves and try to rethink ourselves. Who are we? What are we? So that when we stand there on the Yom Hadin, we have something to present to God, and we can say, "Look, God, this is who I am. This is where I've been this past year. This is what I've done. This is what I've grown into." But sometimes it's difficult to focus then, and to figure out exactly what am I supposed to be thinking about. What exactly am I supposed to be looking at myself? On what measuring stick am I meant to be looking and measuring myself and saying, if I look last year and I look this year, it's been a tremendous year of growth. Look at where I was. Look at where I am. It's an amazing thing. But on what metric? In which way are we supposed to see that? So the Talmud tells us a beautiful thing. The Talmud tells us, Omer Rava, that b'shah shem machnisin adam ledin, when a person goes to judgment, after 120, when a person is brought to judgment for the life that they lived in this world, and they say to a person, they ask him 6 questions. And that is our final exam from our life in this world. And the first question that's asked, Nasata v'nasata b'emunah, did you do business honestly? And then the heavenly court asks, did you set aside time for the study of Torah? And then the third question, did you engage in procreation? Then the fourth question, Sipisa liyeshua, did you pine away for the redemption? Then Pilpalta b'chachma, they ask us, did you engage in the dialectics of wisdom? And then finally, did you understand one thing from another? As important as those questions might be, I'm not sure what they all are, which we will unfold in a few moments, but as important as those questions might be, there are many, many other questions that could have been asked. Why are these the questions? These seem to be presented as the 6 main points that a person's life has to encompass. The 6 main metrics on which we judge whether our lives are valuable or not valuable. Why is it these 6? And what really is being asked of a person? What are the correct answers? It seems pretty simple. As they say, oder ja oder nicht. It either was or it wasn't. You either did it or you didn't do it. It's a yes or no answer. It doesn't seem to be so complicated. What really is being asked of us? And what does this section of the Talmud have to do with Rosh Hashanah? So let's take a look at every one of these questions and understand them one by one and understand really what's being asked of us. What really are we meant to be thinking about? What really are the points of our lives that we're meant to be perfecting and we're meant to be upgrading? So the first question that's asked is, Nasata v'nasata b'emunah, did you do business honestly? Isn't that amazing? The first question is not, were you religious? Did you have a relationship with God? The first question that's asked the person is, were you an honest person? Nasata v'nasata b'emunah. It's not a question about spirituality. It's a question about, it's a question about, were you an honest person? And the truth is that honesty really sits at the very basis and foundation of our lives and at the basis and the foundation of the world. In Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah says that Jerusalem's fate was sealed not because of religious failure, but because of acting dishonestly, mixing silver with baser materials, diluting wine, political corruption, a general sense of dishonesty. That's why Jerusalem was destroyed. Isaiah wasn't shocking anybody. Everybody knew this, because that's the real danger. When there is widespread dishonesty and widespread corruption, it saps the moral of a society, makes people cynical, and erodes the fabric of any people. It makes people wonder, why should they make sacrifices for the common good if everybody else is bent on personal advantage? You know, unfortunately, we sometimes come in contact with people where the yes is not a yes and the no is not a no, where dishonesty seems to be the rule of the day. There are certain businesses, there are certain things where it's just sometimes so disheartening because we're trying to live our lives in such an honest way. We're trying to be just honest, emistic of people, truthful, kind of real people. And then when you come in contact with dishonesty and you come in contact with crookedness, it becomes so difficult to stay committed to that life of honesty. But I think that the question goes even deeper. Because I think that the question that's being asked is, are you a taker or are you a giver? Because honesty in the subtleties of business is not only a moral issue, but it's really an issue of what's motivating you. Is it what is right or is what feels good? Is the reason why you're doing what you're doing because this is the right thing, the good thing to do? Or because this is the thing that's good for me? You know, in this week's parsha, there were 3 sections in the opening of the parsha. Three of the most difficult sections to understand in the entire Torah. There's the section called the Yefas Toar, which is about war. You go to war, and the Torah says that if a soldier sees a beautiful woman, a captive woman, then he is allowed, and he desires that woman, so then he's allowed to take that woman home. And when he takes that woman home, so then she has to sit for 30 days, sort of sit shiva, cry over her mother and father, and then he's allowed to marry her. And that's the Torah gives a commandment that if you desire this woman, this is the way to take her. It's an honest marriage. She converts to Judaism, and everything is good. The second section is the Torah says that if a man marries two women, which is permissible in the Torah, and one of them is beloved, one of them is hated, and the hated woman has the older child, has the Bechor, so then he can't switch and say, look, I can't stand the lady. I can't stand the kid either. So I want to switch it out and make the other wife, make her son, make him the Bechor, make him the firstborn. You're not allowed to do that. Section number 2. Section number 3, the Torah tells us that if you have a child, the age of 13 to 13 and 3 months, small window of opportunity, and this child is rebellious, he's eating too much meat and drinking too much wine, and he's stealing from his father, stealing from his parents. Torah says the parents can't control this child. They take the child to the court and they say to the court, B'nenu zeh, ben sora mora, this child is a rebellious, recalcitrant child. We can't do anything with this child. And they give him over to the court. And what does the court do? The court takes the child, brings him out to the doorway of the court, and they stone the child. What? That's not Torah. Not one of these three things. It sounds so odd. I don't have time tonight to go into the details of each one of them. Trust me. They not only make sense, this third one, the Ben Sora Mora, the Talmud says is never going to happen, never will happen. It's only there to learn how to raise children. That's for another great talk about how to raise children, how to learn it from the recalcitrant, rebellious child. But our rabbis look at these three sections and wonder, why did this week's parsha start with those three sections, one right after the other? And the rabbis wonder also, why is it? So the rabbis tell us that the reason is because if you, in fact, marry this woman in war, then you will have, then it's not going to end well. She's going to become a hated wife. And in the end, you're going to raise from her a child that is going to be a rebellious child. Nice, neat little package. 1, 2, 3. Stick them all together. Beautiful. Nah, it's got to be more than that. I think what the Torah is telling us like this. What the Torah is telling us is that, look, at the end of the day, you would be doing what the Torah said you're allowed to do. You would be fulfilling what the Torah said you can fulfill because the Torah gave you permission to take this woman home and to marry this woman. There's no problem with that. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're living a life of self-indulgence. You're living a life that's all about you. You see this woman, this captive woman, you bring her home, she cries over her mother and father, means she cries over her past, over her idolatry, over where she was and who she was and what she lived with, and she's crying over that. And you're watching this for 30 days. She's sitting there in a way that she looks like she's sitting Shiva. And after 30 days, you don't look at it and say, you know what, this is not about me, this is about her. Let her go. Let her go back to her people. Let her go back to her family. But you say, no, I'm taking this woman. That means I'm following the Torah. But at the end of the day, I'm being self-indulgent. And when you're self-indulgent, when you're living about you, when you are a taker, when it's all about you, so then ultimately what happens is that falls apart. It collapses. We say that Ava, Tluya B'Davar, love that's dependent upon a factor. Get rid of the factor, the love falls away. Because if it's all about me, so then there is nothing altruistic, nothing real, there's no foundation. And ultimately what happens? You raise a rebellious child. You raise a self-indulgent child. You never once said to that child, be self-indulgent. But the child picked up the message. They watched. They learned not from the words, but they learned from the actions, and they understood what it meant. This is what my father's values are. His values are all about himself and his own pleasure. My father was a taker. And that has an effect on a child. Takers can't have relationships. When a person is just focused on themselves, so then it's impossible to create a society. You know what the ultimate statement? When a person says, look, you have to take me for who I am. This is who I am, and you have to accept that. If you only unfolded that and packaged that a little bit, what that person is saying is that this is not about you, this is about me. And if you don't like me, tough luck. I'm not changing for you, because this relationship is not about giving to you. This relationship is about me. So often a great rabbi once said that so often when people say, I love you, what they're really saying is, I love me. And I love what you do for me. He once said a beautiful thing. He said that, we say we love fish. If you loved fish, you would take it and throw it back in the sea. You wouldn't eat the fish. What we love is what the fish does for us, is what it gives to us. Because so often, what looks like an act of giving is really an act of taking. Very often when a person does, I shouldn't say very often, you can tell the difference between the act of bikur cholim, of visiting the sick. Person goes to visit the sick, they turn their day upside down to be able to have a little time to be able to get to the hospital. They get to the hospital, and the patient that they're going to visit is sleeping. I don't have another hour to get to the hospital. I don't have another hour to give this. And you stand and you figure, what am I going to do? And as you're standing there, you go, and the person opens up their eye. Oh, you're awake. Great. That wasn't a visit for that person. Very often that was a visit for me, to make me feel better, to make me feel like I'm doing something. That's about a taker, not about a giver. And when they ask us the question, Nasata v'nasata be'amuna, did you do business honestly? Were you doing business because business needs to be done and therefore it needs to be done correctly? Or you were doing business because you needed things, you were acquiring things, you were getting things, you were conquering the world, it was all about you? Are you a giver or are you a taker? And that's the real question of number one. And it's a question that every person has to grapple with in their life. Is the chesed that I'm doing, is the kindness that I'm doing for the sake of the kindness? Or is the kindness that I'm doing for the good feelings, the success that it gives me, that sense of goodness that it gives me? Or is it really ultimately all about you? Is it ultimately all about what I can give you and what I can do for you? That's question number one. Question number two, kavati itim l'Torah. Did you set aside times for the study of Torah? It's a simple question. For a man, it's a very simple question because a man has an obligation, a person has an obligation to be studying Torah all day long. And therefore, a person also has to take care of themselves. They have to work, they have to do things, they have to take care of their family. And therefore, did a person set aside kavati itim l'Torah? Did you take your obligations seriously and did you set aside times for the study of the Torah? The Bartanura explains that the Torah should be the center. And when you're done, so then you go and you do the things that you have to do. But that the center of your life is Torah. But that's for those that are obligated, that have that mitzvah, that obligation of constant study of Torah. But what does that mean for the rest of us? On a simple level, what's being asked of us is, did you set an atmosphere that is conducive for learning and for growing? Did you set that up in your life, that your life was all about opportunities to be able to grow, opportunities to be able to learn? But I think maybe even it goes deeper. Because it says kavata. Did you establish? It doesn't say lomadata, did you learn, or shamarta, did you guard, or asita, did you do? But it says kavata, did you fix it? Was this the center of your life? Was the Torah, was Judaism, was living spiritually, living meaningfully, was that the center of your life? Was that what your life was all about? Was that what your life revolved around? Was it something that was kavua? Was it something that was permanent and not transitory? There are so many things in our lives that compete for our attention. There are so many things in our lives that are pulling away at us. So many things that are saying, that are vying for our attention. So many things that are vying for us, for our sense of priority. And what's being asked of us is, did we make Jewish living and Jewish life meaningful living and meaningful life? Living with a sense of purpose and meaning. Was that the center of our lives? And then, maybe even one step more, kavata. Did we staple it inside? Was it internalized? Was it just something external? Or was it something that was a part and a parcel of our very lives? You know, you look at some people and you see that they're living on a plane, that they're thinking about everything. They're cognizant of everything. You know, podcasting is a really interesting thing. I've gotten into podcasting. And there's a big difference between a podcast and a shir. A shir, you got to listen to. You pay attention. You're not going to get much if you're sitting there and, doing other things. But on a podcast, the podcast is made specifically almost so that you can multitask. You can listen with a half an ear, you get a nice idea, you hear a nice story, you hear a nice thing, but you don't have to focus and concentrate on it. It's a conversation between people. It's somebody's rant, somebody's thinking, but you don't have to concentrate so much. Podcasts never get internalized. We focus on them, we listen to them, we pay attention to them. But when we listen to things, when we pay attention to them, then they become internalized. They become a part and a parcel of our existence. And that's the second question. The second question is that did you live a life of meaning? And was meaning the center of your existence? Then comes number 3. Asakta bepirya v'rivya. Did you have children? Really? What about a person who decided that they didn't want to have children in their life? What about a person who wasn't able to have children? What happens if the answer to that question is no? I wasn't osek in pirya v'rivya. I couldn't have children. What's God going to say then? Oops. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to be so insensitive. What's the question? What are we being asked? We can't be being asked if we have children. What is pru urvu, pirya v'rivya? Pru urvu doesn't just mean be fruitful and multiply. That's the way it's translated in the English Chumashim. Pru urvu means that we have to increase and we have to give to. We have to raise children. What's being asked of us is, were we involved in raising the children of the world? Were we involved in teaching others, in teaching the world, in uplifting and elevating the students of the world? Did we see ourselves as teachers? Famous story of a person sitting in a boat, and they're sitting in a lifeboat, and there they are making a hole in the lifeboat. The person says to them, "What are you doing? We're going to drown." The person says, "Mind your own business. I'm just doing it under my seat." Do we recognize that the things that we do have an incredible influence on everybody else around us? You walk into a room, and you walk into a room shining with a beautiful smile. All of a sudden, the whole room gets uplifted, and it could be a room of people that are in miserable moods. And if you walk into a room in a miserable mood, you can take people that are in the middle of the most joyous simcha, and you can damper that simcha. We have an incredible effect on the people around us. Our existence, our attitude, our being, what we do, we're teachers. Every single thing we do is teaching someone something. Did we take that seriously? See, messages, as I mentioned before, don't come through words. Messages come through deed. They come through attitude. Once I had an opportunity in my life, I was asked by my yeshiva to Neres Rabbinical College to speak at their annual dinner. It was many, many years ago. At their annual dinner, they have 1,000 people. And all of my rabbis, all of the teachers that saw me pass through the yeshiva and saw me through my stages in development through the yeshiva were there and sitting on the dais, and I ended up having to sit with them. At first, I thought this was a joke. I thought that it was somebody that was impersonating the head of the yeshiva that was calling me and asking me if I would speak at the dinner, because I couldn't imagine that they would ask me. When I started my speech, I actually said that for those of you that know me, for those of you that don't know me, you're saying, I stood up and I said, I thought that this was a joke, and I couldn't believe that they would ask me to speak at the yeshiva dinner. So I stopped and I said, for those of you that don't know me, you're thinking, wow, what a humble person. I said, those of you that know me are sitting there going, yeah, Taka, it's pretty funny. And the fact that they had asked me to speak was really an incredible thing. What I spoke about at that dinner was that I went out and was living in a very small town and was engaged in small town Judaism. And there were many of us that did that went to smaller places in America, places underdeveloped Jewish communities, and Baruch Hashem were able to develop them and to build beautiful, beautiful institutions, day schools, high schools, mikvahs, eruvin, beautiful things. And I said, I learned this from the yeshiva. Now, the truth is, never once did I hear in all of my years in yeshiva did I ever hear the words, you have to go to a small community and dedicate your life to outlying Jews. But every message that I got in that yeshiva was to feel an achrayus, a sense of responsibility for the Jewish people. To feel a sense of responsibility, to feel a sense that it lies on my shoulders. It wasn't the words that they said. It was the atmosphere that was sent. It was the message that was sent. We all are teaching others. We're sending messages to others. We are ambassadors. And that third question is what's being asked of us. Asakta bepirya v'rivya is, did you take your responsibility as a teacher of teaching the next generation, of teaching those around you, of teaching those that are students in comparison to you? Did you take that seriously? Question number 4. Tzipisa Yeshua. Did you wait for Mashiach? Not did you sing, we want Mashiach now, but did you wait for Mashiach? Did you wait for a better day? It's an amazing thing. It's Erev Rosh Hashana. It's 15 minutes before the year is going to end. And we daven Mincha. And one of the brachos that we say in Mincha on Erev Rosh Hashanah, regular weekday Mincha, sometimes it's 5 minutes before the end of the year. It's right at the end. And look at the words we say. Barech Aleinu es Hashana hazais l'taiva. God bless this year for good. Excuse me? The year is over. Why don't you leave that out in the Mincha right before Rosh Hashanah? What do you mean, bless this year for good? Because we believe that even afilu cherev chado, even if a sharp knife, a sword is lying by the neck of a person, that a person never gives up hope. And that waiting for Mashiach means, did you live a life of hope? Did you believe that there was going to be a better world? Did you believe and hope and pine away and do what you could to participate in the building of that new world, the building of that better day? I'm preaching to the choir. Every single person here, I believe, has at some point in their career made aliyah. And there's many that are just, whether you've been here for 24 years or whether you've been here for 24 weeks or 24 minutes. Every one of us here has committed ourselves to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. We've committed ourselves to live in the land of Israel, no matter whether that's a messianic dream or whether it's just a dream of our people, of being a part of our people, of being a part of our people's future, of being a part of the greatness of our people. But that we lived lives of hope, of pining away, of desiring, of thinking, of dreaming. There is no event that could be great enough to celebrate that realization of the dream of being part of the people in our land, being part of the nation in its homeland, bringing it and helping it march towards this new day. It's not a simple thing. It says that Eretz Yisrael is nikna b'Yisurin. Eretz Yisrael is acquired with Yisurin, with suffering. Every person has gone through things. Every person has stories, has things. And the Yisurin, by the way, is not just having to deal with government offices. That's not called Yisurin. That's just the way it is here. Get used to it. But the Yisurin of having simchas happen in another country and you're here, of God forbid of deaths happening in another country and you can't be there, of missing incredible things that are going on in your life, but of knowing that you're in the Holy Land with the holy people, marching that nation onto its eternity. It's an incredible thing to be able to be home again. And that's the question that's being asked of us. This one is free space and a bingo card. This one we got. We all nailed this one. So we only have 5 others that we have to worry about. But Tzipisa Yeshua, did you pine away? But the truth is, even those that are here have to ask themselves the question, do I recognize how incredibly important and powerful this place is? Do I understand what an honor and what a merit it is? What a zechut it is to be able to live here? I had an incredible thing happen to me this Shabbos. Two events Shabbos morning. It was a fellow, his father-in-law was visiting him. His father-in-law had a very massive stroke. He's on his way back he's rehabilitating from his stroke. Most of his movement has come back, but his ability to be able to speak has not. Nevertheless, he can say the brachas. A religious man, he can say the blessings on the Torah. And we gave him an aliyah on Shabbos. He was a little nervous to receive an aliyah, but he came up to the Torah. And it took about 4 minutes to say the bracha. But in a very deliberate way, he said, Baruch Atah, and he said every single word. And I said to myself, is that unbelievable? What a reminder to us of how precious every word is. Of how precious he was thinking. He was exhausting himself thinking to get out every single word. Imagine if we exhausted ourselves thinking about whether we should say something or not say something. It just opened my eyes to realize we take for granted the fact that we can speak. We have to stop and realize, wow, what a gift. That often sing, often ling, as they say. It comes to my head, it comes out of my tongue. Great. Wait, that's a schus. That's a merit to be able to say that. That's an honor to be able to say that. And then there was a second event. We didn't have a Kohen. We haven't had a Kohen in weeks and weeks. All of a sudden, during Musaf, a Kohen walks in from the neighborhood, and he says, Birchas Kohanim, the blessing of the priests. He's not a member of the synagogue. He's a Sephardi. We're an Ashkenazi shul. He's not even so comfortable. Came into bless. I asked one of the guys, who is this guy? He told me, he comes in every once in a while, just so we should have a Kohen, and that we should be able to be zocha, to merit, to hear Birchas Kohanim, the blessing of the priests. Every day in the land of Israel, we have the opportunity to hear the blessing of the peace. What an incredible schus, what an incredible merit. We take it for granted. A lot of times people, they daven every day in a shul where they do Birchat Kohanim. On days where they don't have a Kohen, it's like, okay, good, we get to save 3 minutes. Right? We take for granted. Look at what we get to do here. Look at what we get to have here. When we see so many incredible things, we have to remind ourselves, don't take it for granted that we have this incredible blessing to be in the land of Israel. See, peace of Yeshua. Did you appreciate being in the land of Israel? Did you pine away for that better day? Did you desire to be here? And when you're here, did you take it seriously? And were you awake to all of its blessings? The fifth question, Pilpalta b'chachma. Did you delve into wisdom? Did you live your life on the surface? Did you remain in kindergarten? In kindergarten, we learned certain things. We learned about Paro in pajamas in the middle of the night. I remember when I heard that song for the first time, my grandson, I'd never heard in America, my grandson came from Eretz Yisrael one year for Pesach to America, and he's singing to me, Paro b'pajamas b'yemtza halayla. And I think, wow, that's so cute. And it was cute for a 5-year-old. But when a 15-year-old is still talking Paro b'pajamas b'yemtza halayla, when our perceptions as 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds is still about Paro and pajamas b'yemtza halayla, there's something wrong. If our perceptions of Judaism, our perceptions of truth, our perceptions of meaning, of values and of honor, if all of those are the same as they were as we were younger, we haven't developed, we haven't moved on, we haven't been thinking deeply into the things that we do and into the life that we lead, then there's a problem. And that's where we're being challenged. Pilpalta b'chachma. Did we sharpen ourselves? Did we delve beyond the surface of life? So many people just look at things that happen and they see things and they don't see the depth. They don't see things that are going on. Incredibly deep things are happening to us, are happening in our world. We're not just looking at politics. We're not just looking at events. We're not just looking at this thing called Corona. There are platelets of the world that are moving. The world is shifting and changing. There are so many incredible things that are happening. Are we looking just at the surface? Or are we delving into the depths of life? Pilpalta b'chachma. Did we sharpen our existence? Did we sharpen our lives? And then finally, we're being asked, Hevanta davar mitoch davar. Did we intuit one thing from another? Did we understand bina, the word bina, which is understanding, wisdom, from the word bona, to build? When you take two things and you put them together, you're bona, you build something. When you take ideas, you put them together and then you start to see the depths of things. You start to see behind that. You start to see now a structure. That's called bina. That's called understanding. Did we spend our lives understanding davar mitoch davar, putting things together, getting the penny to drop, understanding the big picture, understanding what's really going on in this world? These are the 6 questions that we get asked when we get to heaven. And these are the 6 things that a person has to look at themselves and has to ask themselves, am I a giver? Am I a taker? Is meaning and meaningful living at the center of my life? Is it all about me? Is it about godliness? Is it about my people, my land? Is it about wisdom? Is it about understanding? Is that who I am? Because if that's who I am, then I am growing into something amazing. And if that's got sidetracked, then it needs to be tweaked and fixed. And that's what the month of El is for. The month of El is, in essence, to ask ourselves these 6 questions, but in essence, these 6 questions are asking us really one question. And asking us, are we physical creatures that are having an occasional spiritual experience? Or are we spiritual beings in physical forms? What is the center and the meaning and the purpose of our lives? Well, again, I preach to the choir. Being involved in an organization like Hadassah is itself the greatest understanding that a person is dedicated to something greater than just living on the surface and greater than just indulging and worrying about themselves. The very essence of the organization is about worrying, about thinking about, caring about others. But it always needs to be tweaked. And it always needs to be fine-tuned and upgraded. And that's the job of the month of Elul as we prepare for Rosh Hashana. That we ask ourselves the questions now so that when we stand there on Rosh Hashana and we greet God again in his palace, we stand before him and we say, God, you might not recognize me. Because last year I was a little bit more focused on me. Last year, I was a little more focused on my material life. Last year, I wasn't in your land yet. Last year, I wasn't thinking so deep. But look at me now, God. Zochreinu l'chaim. Remember us, look at us, for the beautiful life that we have built. V'kosveinu b'sefer hachayim, and write us in the book of life for eternity. It's not the book of living. It's the book of meaningful and purposeful life. And may every single one of our days be filled with beauty, direction, purpose, and meaning. We should all be zochet to have amazing years, to have lives of amazing blessing, to use these 6 questions to realign ourselves, to lift ourselves up, so that we can enjoy and appreciate and be zochet to all the blessings that God has in store for us. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi, for those most inspiring and beautiful words. Wow. Really, really beautiful. And I think that we're all touched by all of those words and all the meanings that you bring to those words. So we wish you a very Shana Tova and a beautiful, healthy new year. And thank you so much. Toda
Thank you.
Rabba. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, wow. Well, I feel insignificant. Oh boy, I'm just a greeter. Where do you go from here? Well, I'll tell you where we go from here. First of all, before the new year even starts, I have to ask for mechila. I'm so sorry. I left a name off of the donors list and the supporters list, and I want to thank Cynthia Barmore profusely for her ongoing support always. And I'm so sorry that I did not read your name off. All of you know I have difficulty with my eyes, and so I'm going to blame it on my eyes. So Cynthia, forgive me. You are a wonderful, wonderful member of our chapter, as is everyone, and I hope that it didn't cause you angina, agita, that I didn't mention your name, and I hope I didn't leave anybody else out. Oy, oy, oy. This is so stressful. Okay, everyone, we'll move on, and I'm so glad that all of you had an opportunity to hear Rabbi Wogelantner, but we also, it isn't easy running a successful Hadassah Israel chapter, but we in Modi'in are extremely fortunate to have two outstanding women, co-presidents, who bring talent, hard work, and dedication to Hadassah women that is beyond your imagination. Rose Charlotte will now say a few words, followed by Ellen Shemesh, who will have a bracha for you and a l'chaim. And so I hope you will stay on to hear both of our wonderful presidents. Rose?
Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you, Rabbi Jeff. Rhonda, I just want to make mention that we forgot somebody else,
Oi.
and I want to thank Sandy and Svi Koros for being a sponsor this evening. We are going to perfect our act, and I apologize to anybody that we may have forgotten. When I look out at fabulous Zoom program participants, I see the faces of women who are strong, beautiful, and determined to make a difference in their new home in Eretz Yisrael. And when I sit with the Levonah chapter board to create programs for you, I think how fortunate we are to have such a varied worldly audience of women. Yes, we have very good men too, as you remember, our fabulous five. So thank you, men, and in memory of Louis Katz, we all remember. Educated women want to learn, joyous women who want to sing and dance, intellectual women who want to discover and be challenged, and creative women who want us to tickle their fancy with the latest trends. You may be playful, a foodie, or a musical genius, and we have programs for all of you. There are so many new faces tonight that I want you to know that at least once a month, we have a program that brings us together in a sisterhood of life experiences. We remember the Holocaust with our annual Holocaust Memorial Program. We honor and celebrate new medical breakthroughs with guest speakers who share all that they do for us. We play games and eat ice cream, and we have tashlich on the beach. We have painted, we have communed with nature and art. We've celebrated the bounty of Israel with our Tu B'Shvat Seder, and we learn how to be healthy for ourselves and our families. Hadassah isn't just about raising money for the hospitals, but it is near and dear to my heart. It is about creating bonds and joining forces to make our lives better and sharing in meaningful, positive experiences. Join us for each and every program to make new friends and learn new things and have fun while being a light unto the nations. And I want to give a plug to our Hadassah auction and let you know it's something that everybody looks forward to. And please God, we are planning to have it this year, COVID permitting. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you in the coming year and wish you a Shana Tova Umatuka, a sweet and healthy new year.
Thank you, Rose. That was wonderful. We really appreciate those words. And if you know Rose, she is like married to Hadassah and is such a hard worker, as is our next speaker, Ellen Shemesh. So Ellen, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Rhonda. This is truly an inspirational evening for me. The words from the rabbi certainly rang true. This past year has been a challenging one for all of us. I want to wish a kol hakavod to all of the olim who followed their dream and came home in the midst of a pandemic. And kol hakavod to all of the devoted and active members of the Levonah chapter who continue to work tirelessly and cheerfully on Zoom and in person, and sometimes switching back and forth many times. We have gone past Plan A and Plan B to sometimes Y or Z, keeping the health of our members foremost in our minds, while continuing to provide you with a variety of programs. My bracha for all of us is continued good health and koach in the coming year. May we all be able to meet safely in person and live in safety in our homeland. Everyone, please raise your glass and join me in a l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you all for joining us tonight. We're certainly happy to take any questions if you'd like to stay on. May your new year be filled with things to be grateful for, and may every day in Eretz Yisrael be meaningful for you. Join us in making that happen, that you should be enjoying your life here, your family here, and your family of friends in Hadassah, the sisterhood of life experiences. Laila Tov to everyone, and Shana Tova. Good evening.
Shana Tova. Enjoyable
Thank you.
program.
That was wonderful.
Thank you so much, Shana Tova.
Thank you for the present.
We're going.